from $1,000 to $3,000 with the same opening fee of $1,065. Rosewood Memorial Park is located in Virginia Beach, and it's run by SCI, which is one of the largest funeral services or providers in the United States. Single right of interment there was $17.95 to $39.95. The perpetual care fee in this case is included in those costs. The second right of interment is only 50% there of the original cost versus $75. They will allow 2 cremate interments in one space. That's their maximum, and the opening fees are $9.45. They have an area called the Chapel of Serenity, which is a mausoleum, and they have glass front niches. You'll see the prices there. They range from 12-inch niches to 24. One of their things there was so you could put the urns in there and be able to see them instead of covering them up. And you also would have the option, though, to if someone enjoyed fishing or baseball or sports, to put a baseball in there that maybe meant something to them, or some type of a keepsake in there that the family could still come and see. They also had columbarium niches there for $2,000 to $2,500, with opening fees being $4.95. These were outside. This was the only place that I went to that had the ossuary, which was again outside in their cremation garden. That was $195 to place one remain, and then there was a $495 opening and closing fee. Cremation memorials and benches were also offered that ranged from anywhere from $4,300 to $11,000. That included everything opening and closing, and that's where you get this benches, a memorial, and the cremains can be placed in that and placed out in the garden. Roosevelt Memorial Park in Chesapeake, a single right of interment, $12.95 to $18.95. Options are 1 by conventional interment or up to 2 cremains, with the opening fees being $730 to $1,040. They won't let you do the mixing. You can either do one or the other. They had cremation niches for $1,920. The niche allows 1 cremate. Opening ranges from $730 to $1,040. The perpetual care at this particular park was all inclusive in these prices that you see. Carver Cemetery, out of all the cemeteries I went to, I think was probably the prettiest and most neatest cemetery. They have a single right to inter for $500, ranging from $500 to $1,750, depending upon where you choose in the cemetery. They charge a second right to inter of $250. A third right is $250 also, and everything's inclusive in that. They do have a mausoleum with niches there. A single niche could range anywhere, depending upon where you pick in the mausoleum, from $800 to $2,000. Everything is inclusive. They offer side-by-side niches, which range from $1,400 to $3,800. They're all inclusive, and that's basically a larger 2 niches together where husband and wife could be placed together. I have a note there that the niche perpetual care opening and closing, and even the engraving of the plaque, is included in those costs you see. They too had a scatter garden. It was $250 per scatter, and the plaque is an extra cost. That ranged in price depending upon what you had done. And I believe this would be our last slide. This is the scatter garden at the Carver Cemetery, and there was a bench on the other side that I couldn't get in the picture, but basically you walk out to the scatter garden, and there around the plants there is where you would scatter your remains, and then there can be little plaques and stuff placed out there around the area. I think that's it. A lot of information.
That's the information you asked for. Our recommendation is that we not make any changes at this time. We monitor the requests as they come in for the internment of cremains.
Yeah.
Ms. Johnson, yes.
And on many occasions before, I've said, and I want to say to be included in the minutes, we have quite a bit of space in Poplar Springs, and we are in essence wasting land when we put 2 small cremains in one big spot for conventional interment. So I'd like to register my concern, once again, especially for Southview Cemetery. We have very limited space, and it really becomes vital that we use our space wisely. And if we inter 2 cremains in one conventional space, in my opinion, that's a waste of land. So, I mean, we have,
Question of a professional. He made reference to some units have a 4-foot that allows for 2. So if you had 10-foot, would that not logically be reasonable to say you could have 4?
but our
I know,
ordinance
but I mean,
doesn't
would that
support
not be
that.
a reasonable consideration?
Well, my question is, how do you separate it for families? Because very few times would you have someone that would inter, 10 cremains or
I'll say
5
4
cremains?
in
4
10
in
too.
one space.
Yeah.
That wouldn't be as common in Franklin.
Okay.
So I would wonder how you separate that out for different families. But I do want to register that concern because we have very little space as compared to Poplar Springs. And
But the policy now is 2 cremains or 1 interment?
The policy now would allow us to put 1 internment and 1 remain and 1 cremain, or 2 cremains. The existing policy allows us to do that.
Okay.
We don't get many requests. There may come a time when it is increasingly a choice that is made by persons, and you may want to revisit it. But right now, we can accommodate it under the existing policy. If you want in the future to revisit it, you can do that. It will take a considerable amount of research and decision-making. You have to think about drainage and everything and how you want to reconfigure. I understand Vice Mayor Johnson's concern about space, but we have 2 cemeteries with space. Anybody
one is
can
procured
purchase in either one of those cemeteries right now. We have space available. But long range, way down, this is a subject I would suggest that you would want to revisit.
But
Steph
what-
and I talked about this.
Mr. Bly?
All right, Russ, okay, we have a lot of Poplar Springs. I understand that earlier was $1,500 per plot. And with Southview is $330.
Right.
So if you divide a plot, you're gonna get over at Southview $165 for a burial plot. But with Poplar Springs, it's gonna cost you $750 for a burial plot.
330.
Huh?
330 in Southview.
Yeah, but you're talking about dividing that up and selling half of it. That's what, my understanding at our
they're
last
saying-
council meeting.
They're saying sell 1 conventional space for $330 and place 2 cremains in it.
Right,
Which would be a family decision.
right.
Would it be
Right.
one
But
spot?
my understanding, I thought
That's
at
a
the
waste
last
of
council meeting, you were talking about taking a borough plot and let somebody, if they had one family member, divide that little, half of that borough plot. That was my understanding.
No, the babies now, the baby section, well,
Yeah, we have an infant section, and we have to provide that by the ordinance.
For babies,
And-
yeah.
Yes, sir, infants. And so what that is in essence is the 10 by 4 foot plot divided into 2, because the vaults and the little caskets will fit in that size there. And so that is we have a special little section that we have marked off for them. We don't like to mix the grown-ups with infants.
So that'd be a 4x5 section, right?
Yes, sir.
For infants
All
only.
right, so you still be paying $750 for it, right? And if you're over Southview,
You would
still
pay half
be-
of
Yeah.
half of whatever the initial cost would be,
Right.
correct?
And over at Southview, $330 if you bought a 4x5, you'd be paying $165.
That's correct.
That's right.
So that's a big difference.
Yes, it is.
In a lot of ways you look at this,
well,
And
are you
talk-
saying a big difference from Poplar Springs?
Yeah, $750 for that same, service versus, Southview is $165.
May I?
Please,
Ms.
Ms.
He's
Johnson.
right.
Before you were on council, that discussion came up, And the city has invested a lot of money in Poplar Springs, and the prices were set to recoup that money. Whereas in Southview, that extensive work has not been done, or we didn't acquire any more land, so it was only fair to Southview to keep those prices compared to the money that was spent in Poplar Springs.
Well, let's go back to Poplar Springs. I've got family over there.
Mr. Bly,
But let
is this
say-
addressing
Yes,
this
yes,
particular issue?
It's addressed it, it's addressed it. We got the old part of Poplar Springs, and then we got the new part. The old part is practically sold out. So the new part, yes, it is $1,500. But, so if you have somebody that you need to bury, they would have to go to the new part, but it wouldn't be fair for them to want to cremate their family member, and then buy a 4x5 section and pay $750 for it. No matter what the cost is, the city still has control of this, and it all comes under city ordinances how we do this, but,
Well, at this point, we don't have a provision to split this cemetery lot. Unless, we don't have a baby section
Yes, we do.
over in the, in
Yes,
Poplar
we
Springs?
don't technically split lots for cremation. What we offer you is the right to inter in a full space, but you can inter up to 2 people in that one space. Or
So
you
you-
could put one person in vault and casket by conventional means with one cremate at the foot, or you can do 2 cremates.
So you do not buy a lot for $750 in Poplar Springs. You buy a lot for $1,500, and you can
That-
either put one person in it,
Or two.
one vault casket, or you can put 2 cremains.
That's correct.
One vault
So
and
if you
one
put 2 in
cremation.
there, you're cutting your cost in half, which is what I think
That-
Councilman Bly's
That's,
saying.
I think
But-
that's what he's trying to say.
But you don't buy it as
You don't
at
buy
half
half a lot.
price. You buy the whole lot.
You buy the, yes, sir.
No, well, Councilman Bly, everyone's speaking for you, but I believe you're saying there is a difference between the cost in Poplar Springs and in Southview, and you're right about that, there is.
I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the ordinance, or we continue with the recommendation of staff not to make any adjustments at this time, and we revisit this issue if there comes a need to revisit it.
All right, I have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Now discussion?
There again, I'm not sure we're understanding the limited space in Southview versus the space in Poplar Springs. We just have to be mindful of the community having space in Southview.
Is there any projection as to what amount of space is available? How many spots are available at Southview?
We have done those, but I honestly, I could not, if I gave you a number tonight, I couldn't guarantee the accuracy. There's a lot of space in Poplar Springs, and we still have a good amount of space in Southview, but what council needs to remember is that once that's gone, there isn't anywhere to expand.
That's right.
That, I think that is Chad and my biggest concern.
That's right.
There's not any land that we could get to add on, and so we do need to be thinking about the future. And I think that Ms. Fleming had one of the best ideas that through this whole process that I heard is that this is something we need to start thinking about and not jump up and make any rash decisions, but think about it collectively and take some time and look at what we can do and do it right. Because when we start talking about doing freestanding columbariums and things like that, as she said, you do have to think about the design. You have to think about what it's going to look like not only now, but 10 or 15 years down the way.
You gotta look at the cost as well.
Absolutely.
And that's
Very
another
expensive
thing
to
you
put
have
up.
to think about. This is a place where our residents will rest, no matter what, if you agree with the method that they choose for that. And we would not, as staff, at least I certainly would not support this staff doing that kind of change without getting community input. It is for their use. We need to hear what they want.
Exactly.
We do not have time to do that. And there's an irony here, and say this in the most respectful way I know how. Whether this motion that's before you passes or not, we are going to continue to do just what the motion says, because that's our only choice right now. It is an issue that needs to be looked at. We do have a space issue. It cannot be solved right away. We need a process, a plan. We need to go into it with our eyes open, and citizens need to be involved, because it's where they will rest, not us.
May I offer a request to Mr. McLemore to amend the motion to include the establishment of a committee that would take on the responsibility of evaluating this and coming back with recommendations as to how to go into the future.
That's fine
That
with
would
me.
involve citizens as well as professionals.
I
in
can
that
agree to
field.
amend the
We
motion
thought
to
about
state that.
We seriously thought about that. And in fact, had it in the report, and I deleted it. And I'm gonna tell you why I deleted it. You look at when you give us an assignment, you can't give us one reasonably that's gonna be way out before we get to it. We just didn't feel at this time we had enough staff to give it the proper attention. So you can pass that motion, and I can't tell you when that committee would get formed. It's not fair to the citizens to say, we're gonna do this, and then they start calling us and say, who's on the committee? We can't even get our standard committee staff. We can't get people to serve on them. You need to give us some time to think this through and give you a proposal as to where we go and what a committee's role would be. We have not done that, but, you know, it's your choice.
That's why I said that well, for two reasons. One is it needs to be looked at with more attention. I accept, appreciate, and embrace the point that Councilman Bly brought up, and I think it's something that we need to bring clarification to the citizens regarding. And also, at the risk of it's not my intention to be offensive, however, I don't think that we should necessarily go by the judgment, unless it's outside of this council, of someone who potentially can be affected financially because that is their business they're in. So I think that on an issue such as this, it would call for someone who is involved in that business on this council to recuse themselves from offering their input that might sway our votes. It's fine to research with people in the professional industry outside and come back and we make the deliberation. But to have someone who indirectly could be affected by this, I just feel a little uncomfortable with that. And that's not to say that
We're not
there's...
there yet. We're not there yet. We haven't established a committee, and
No, I'm saying, why don't we just accept the staff's recommendation of not changing anything at this time?
is there any appetite for a committee at this point? Does it make sense? If it doesn't, that's fine with me. If it's an important issue, establishing a committee that could be established and worked on in the future, and it could be a city goal. It doesn't have to be done now, but so that we get it on the table as being important.
I think it's going to need a committee, maybe not at this moment. I think leave it to the city manager and do a little bit more research, a little bit more study on it, get things together as for what the groundwork would be, and bring that back to us, and then establish the committee. But I do think we need to do it fairly quickly. I don't think it's something we can really drag our feet on for a year, 2 years, or 3 years, because then we may be way behind the 8 ball, if I'm gathering the information correctly.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any further discussion?
Restate the motion, please.
That we accept the staff's recommendation and not make any changes at this time, which is the motion. And regarding further discussion, I don't support forming necessarily a committee on this. I am for giving the staff more opportunity to investigate it, and once they have come back with their results, then we offer a public hearing to allow citizens to come express their concerns before we make a decision. But I don't think, as Ms. Fleming said, we have difficult enough time with
Okay.
staffing committees. So I don't support getting a committee, but I do support leaving it with staff.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 And aye. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Russ. Thank you, Chad.
Thank you all. Now, next item on our agenda is the proposed charter changes that have been received at this point. Mr. Williams has given us extensive information at our request in order to clarify whether or not these requests meet the legalities of the Constitution and the state and how it affects charters, and he's even referenced other cities who have similar provisions for our reference. To put this on the floor for discussion, is there a motion? And then we can have discussion.
At what point do we solicit the citizens to speak?
We have to have a public hearing, so they'll get plenty of time to have, oh, you were talking about tonight for the
Well,
citizens.
we've had people sign up to speak, so if we want to have that first before we have a motion, we may do that. But for us to discuss it, we should put it in the form of a motion and discuss the motion. So having said that, we do have several people who've signed up to speak. The order in which I believe they've signed up is Mr. Johnson.
Can we put it on the agenda? That didn't give us the right to discuss it.
But they've also signed up to speak on that agenda
No,
item.
I'm not talking about that, I'm talking about the motion to discuss.
Well, the proper procedure to discuss an agenda item is to make a formal motion to discuss the motion. And we don't really do that very well.
We don't do,
Well, we should.
We've never done it.
Is this are we going to be discussing the proposed new changes
that's
or the?
under D.
Now, these are the charter changes that are up for consideration at this point.
No, this is
These
D.
are new ones.
This is D.
If this is item D, then this is not the time for that discussion.
I thought it was B.
If this is B, as it relates to the proposed changes that are for consideration tonight, then that's all we're considering at this agenda item, is the 4 proposals that have been proposed. We have a report from Mr. Williams on those 4, and we will discuss those and decide whether or not to go to public hearing. And then the additional requests for change to charter that are not in those 4, we'll discuss under Section D.
Okay,
So
Mis-
does yours come under Section D?
Section D.
Mr.
Okay,
Mayor,
that's fine.
I think for clarification of those citizens, because it is very confusing how they discuss it, so if these same citizens have something to say in regard to the current proposed charter changes, I think now is an opportunity
That's perfectly
for
fine.
them to speak if they are
If-
in
if-
support or
if-
in opposition.
Mr. Blackwell, that's fine. If the conversation or discussion is about the 4 that we have before us now, that's very fine. If it's about something different from those, then that comes under Section D.
Okay.
But can that fall under the Section
That'll come under
A?
Section D.
D, I know, but when we discuss Section A, if they come back with Section D, before we, go through the process, can D be tied into A? Because it's coming from the citizens also.
I think we were told that the timing would not allow for that.
What's timing got to
Mr.
do with it from the standpoint of pushing something through?
Mr. Bly will get to that when we get to the motion.
Well, I tell you,
Just a moment.
okay, I
Mr.
got
Johnson?
you.
Okay.
Do you have anything to address on those 4?
Yes. Yes, I do. To the council, mayor and vice mayor and council, I think the 4 items that you have before you that you're moving forward to try to do by December 5th, we need to really study those because we don't want to weaken the ability of the council. We want to enhance the council. We're facing a very economical situation for our city, and we want to make history that will last. These changes will be in place for a long time. So we want, just like we did with the Woodsman, other issues, I feel we need to study those. My question to the council is, what is the rush to get the 4 items passed by December 5th and to have a public hearing and carry them to the General Assembly? Even if it's the next council that does that and consider that, it would be timely for the city. We don't want to rush to do anything, just like we're talking about the graveyard, which I agree. We don't need to rush with that. The space is very important. I do a lot of funerals there. So basically, we need not to rush these issues to do something that we may regret in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cannon?
The new one.
Okay. Okay. Mr. McClenny?
Members of Council, thank you. I'd like to follow what Dr. Johnson said about rushing this procedure and getting these provisions passed so quickly and not getting input from other citizens. Ms. Fleming stated it a few minutes ago about the cemetery and getting the input from the citizens on the provisions that the charter is going to take on, and the number of years this is going to follow the city council and possibly weaken the city council in its endeavor to take care of city business. Mr. Burgess has my recommendations in front of him, and I'm not going to say what they are. I'm going to give you a copy of it, and I'm going to move on.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Next to sign up is Mr. Drury. Okay. Okay. We have no other, is there anyone else that would like to speak? Even though you've signed, even though we're not in a public hearing, so we don't do that. We will have a public, we'll discuss whether to have a public hearing at our next meeting or not. No one else has signed up to speak on B, so I open up now, the proper procedure, we don't often follow it, the proper procedure is to put a motion on the floor and then debate the motion. But is there any,
That's fine.
we'll get to some structure.
Make the motion.
We'll get to,
Do it the right way.
okay. Is there a motion to be put on the floor concerning item B, proposed charter changes?
I move that the 4 charter changes proposed, make sure I get it right, we authorize the staff to give a notice of public hearing, and that we have a public hearing, schedule a public hearing for November the 28th to invite public comment.
I have a motion on the floor to set a public hearing for the 28th for the discussion of the proposed charter changes. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion?
Yes. Despite the fact that this was presented anonymously to us by the councilman on behalf of citizens that have not shown themselves, on all major issues that have come before the city, we have had citizens come up to us, whether it was the Navy or redistricting, and people that expressed concerns. This charter change came without a person, was sent through their councilman. Now, I was told, well, Councilman, you've done the same thing, and I challenged it was the city attorney who made the statement to me, and I said, I challenge anyone can give a specific issue that I said a citizen brought forward where I didn't have a citizen that stood behind it. That's not the case here. Far as we know, this could have been put together by council members who have not been happy with my being outspoken on council on behalf of my citizens and all citizens of Franklin. And with that said, I am willing to embrace some of these proposed charter changes. However, I have to say that when I was toiling over this, I was led to go to the Bible for my response that I would give to you. And it comes from the book of Ecclesiastes, the 3rd chapter, that simply says there is a time and a place for everything. We are about to embark on a new city manager. The proposed charter change amendments that have been presented to us will take more power from the city council at large than has ever been taken from council. They will directly make it so easy I asked the city attorney today, so if this passes and goes into our charter, literally, if council says we're going to wear red shirts and I wear a blue shirt, I forfeit my office because there is no definition, and Taylor Williams says in his explanations here that there is no definition for the term improper behavior. So it's whatever they want to say it is. So anytime you don't like a council person because he went against you on an issue, then you can get together and kick him off council. I think to have something like that when we're about to turn our city over to a total stranger, except references, is quite a lot to put on the citizens of Franklin after losing IP, after the things that we've been through. Now we're going to take all power that was given to us by the voters and turn it over to the city manager, and the fact that if we question anything, we are going to run the risk of being kicked off of council. I have no problem with supporting recall amendments. In fact, I endorse them. I believe that gives more power to the citizens. If they're unhappy with the service of their representative, they can recall them. But these charter changes to be pushed through to a public hearing when we all know the turnouts of public hearings, and we all know that our minds are usually made up prior to public hearings, I think this is a disservice to the citizens to take this power from council, to put it all in the hands of the city manager with threats of removal, just so that they can control a council person that they feel as though they can't control. I haven't had one citizen come to this dais and express complaints about the job I was doing. People may not like the way I say something or my passion, but I haven't used any profanity on this dais. I haven't broken any rules as far as I challenge any employee of this city to come before us and say I have given them instructions. I haven't done any of the things that have been explained to warrant these charter changes. And these charter changes, in my opinion, directly reflect at things that have revolved me. I have paid all my taxes. And for us to push these things through, because we have to get them into the General Assembly by December 5th, I think is rash, and we will take away. And be careful, because this is a double-edged sword, and it may get Greg McLemore. But don't be surprised when these rules bite another council person who is doing the best job that they can. So I think that we should really give the people more time before we push these charter changes through.
Thank you. Are there any other comments?
Mr. Mayor, I have a couple comments.
Okay.
First, I think Councilman McLemore, you flatter yourself that these are about you. These are about good governance. They're, as stated by the city attorney, they're in a lot of other city charters. So they're not just about you, because unless there's another Councilman McLemore in Norfolk or Portsmouth, I don't know why they would have them in their charter if they're just about you. Couple things to start off with.
The only, Mr. Burgess, it's only in Virginia Beach Charter, the forfeiture
Mr.
things
Burgess
that are
has the
listed.
floor.
According to Mr.
Nowhere in here does it say that council has the right to remove you. It's always about, the recall is about citizens, and the other things are a violation of law. I can't remove anybody up here. So I'm not sure about your red shirt, blue shirt, but that's, I don't read it that way, but that's just a different.
I gave the question to the attorney. He can explain it to you. He
Please,
wrote
Mr.
it.
McLemore, he has the floor.
But he was talking
You've
to
had
me.
your time.
I'm not talking to you, I'm just making statements.
About me to me.
I do want to, Mr. Mayor, if I could, both councilmen, a couple councilmen have consistently said over the, and we all do it, that we represent our constituents, and nobody's ever had a constituent step up and say, I'm that person they're referring to. And I refute the idea that they are alleging that I have lied about that. I represented a group of people that asked me to bring this, and they will come forward. Tonight was not the night to come forward. The public hearing is the place to come forward, and they will be there. If they don't, then we don't move forward, because then there's nobody to stand up and speak on behalf of. And I agree with you. It is a double-edged sword. It affects all of us. If I don't do what I'm supposed to do, the Citizens of Ward 2 have a right to come up with a recall. If I don't pay my taxes, it is a right to be removed. It affects all of us. It does not affect one particular council member.
Mr. Mayor, may I rebuke?
You may rebut.
All due respect, Mr. Burgess, all of these issues that have been outlined in the four, and I don't dispute that there is a handful of citizens that came to you with these these charter amendments. I don't dispute that. Because one thing, I can't prove it's any other word. I have to take your word for it. So I will assume that there was a group of citizens that brought these proposed amendments to you. What I am drastically imploring my colleagues to do is recognize it as such and not have to put post haste on it to get it before the General Assembly before we can allow other citizens to offer their charter amendments for consideration, so that when we go before the General Assembly, we go there with with more than just your handful of citizens' charter amendments to be considered. That's all I'm saying. I will support the charter amendments that you have proposed.
Okay.
But I think it is not fair to other citizens to not have theirs considered at the very same General Assembly session, to make those citizens have to wait for theirs only because I didn't know they were going to bring it this week. They would have came forward perhaps before now if they knew that this was a matter of urgency. It hasn't become a matter of urgency until this council decided to make it a matter of urgency.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Yeah, I got a comment here. I didn't think you were gonna fight, but I did. I agree, with this bombshell we have on the amendment to the charter. I've yet to have, I did have one constituent call me about the way council's run and all that, and when I got through, they thanked me. On this amendment, I take it very personal because I'm gonna read one part here, if you don't mind. And it says, non-interference section to be added to charter. Neither the city council nor any of its members shall direct or request the appointment of any person to or the removal of any person from any office or employment by the city manager or by any of the manager's subordinates, or in any way take part in the appointment of or removal of officers and employees of the city except as specifically provided in this charter. Except for the purpose inquired, the city council and its members shall deal with administrative services of the city solely through the city manager. Neither the city council nor any member thereof shall give orders either publicly or privately to any subordinate of the city manager. Any council member violating the provisions of this section or voting on a motion, resolution, or ordinance in violation of this section shall be guilty of a Class 3 misdemeanor, and upon conviction thereof shall forfeit office as a council member. Now, I'm going to tell you, this, the way it's written, I'm going to tell you like it is. Being honest with you, the public, and the citizens that elected me to represent you with open government. This little chapter right here has to do, and whoever wrote this, I have yet to find out who wrote this up and submitted it to Mr. Burgess here, but it's information in this last paragraph that reflects back to a conversation, a meeting I had with Ms. Fleming and Mr. Williams over here, and nobody else would have known that except the ones involved. So this is, like I said, it's a smokescreen. I'm going to tell you like it is. And the thing is, as an overall, this is to shut the council members down, and you're going to have your little group that's going to vote on everything you want, and we cannot ask a question or support the citizens that elect us to office. This is not right. It's a misjustice to the city and to the citizens. And I truly resent this because I know what it's, I'll tell you, I'm going to say it like this. I did instruct the city manager on an issue we have in this city. When she found out who did it, I did make a recommendation to terminate them. And if she didn't, I said to Mr. Williams and Ms. Fleming, I will go to Attorney General with it. And you know, we'll see. But this is a direct attack on me for what I was approached with, and I followed up with it. And I went to the city manager, the city attorney, and made a statement to look into it and find out who did it, because it's a violation of policy, and it was a violation of ethics as far as the city government of the city of Franklin. And I'm going to hold my gun on this one.
Mr. Bly, let me address that concern. The charter already requires that all employees other than the city attorney and the city manager are employees of the city manager, or employed by the city manager. And it also says that the city council members have no jurisdictional or authority to direct the affairs of any employee and/or department head, except through the city manager. That is all this is codifying. It's, let me finish.
I am.
Okay.
I am.
All it's doing is saying, this is how we're supposed to fund. There's nothing different about this than what's in the charter, with the exception that if there is a violation of that and the council decides that the violation is egregious enough, then they can be removed because of a class 3 misdemeanor. It's merely adding any authority to act to an otherwise no authority to do anything about our conduct. So it is not taking away anything from us, nor is it taking away our responsibility and privilege to direct the city manager or request that the city manager look at anything. So none of our rights or responsibilities have been changed at all, except it's imposed a punishment, so to speak, if we violate that, and it's agreed to by the members of council that we've overstepped our bounds.
All right, let me, I'd like to say a word or two on that. Let's go back, all right, to violate that policy. Okay, I understand. And I'm not against a recall if it comes to that. But this last, you know, I did pretty good till I got this last one. Because I saw the meeting I had with Ms. Fleming and Mr. Williams. Here it was, right here. And I don't think a constituent that did not have input from either the city manager's office or council members or whatever could have written this the way it was written. I see it as a council member. If we pass this, I will not have the authority, nobody up here, to question anything that goes on that's out of order in the city of Franklin through the city manager. My understanding was the city manager and city attorney works for the city council. But it appears that we are working the other way. And I resent that because every time an issue comes up, you always say you're out of order or you're cut off from finishing what you're saying. But I'm going to tell you, the citizens of Franklin, if you support this, we're in big trouble in this town. We'd be better off just to abolish the city council and turn everything over to our city manager.
Mr.
To
Bly,
run everything.
yeah,
I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Mayor. All right, Mr. Bly, go ahead, Mr. Chief.
Thank you. On the recall, the other ones where we can be recalled are by our wards, except for the mayor, and that's by the city as a whole, and it takes 15% of the vote. The forfeiture of office is involving the crimes. It's quite clear, violates any provision of city charter, no longer resides in the ward, is convicted of a crime involving moral turpitude, or fails to pay all their real estate and personal property taxes. It's quite clear in there as to what it's saying. As far as for running for mayor, it's just that if, say, I was going to run for mayor, I would have to give up my city council seat at the end if I still had term left to keep there from being any kind of turmoil possibly on the board later. As far as the requirement on administrative solely through the city manager, Mr. Bly, you did it exactly right. You went through the city manager, as you've said numerous times. Therefore, you wouldn't come underneath of this. However, if you went to one of the department heads and said, I want Johnny over here fired because I don't like the way he did something, then you have circumvented her authority or the city manager authority. That's the way I read it. I don't read it as an attack on you on your meeting with the city manager and the city attorney, because it says right there that except solely through the city manager. It doesn't say the way that you're making it come out.
I think one-
Mr. Mayor, may I say something?
One additional comment I want to make on that particular item. If there is a problem with an employee and someone on council feels very strongly about it, the methodology that must be employed by charter already is that that complaint is given to the city manager. And the city manager then weighs what to be done and decides what to do. If we are not satisfied with whatever has been done, our duty is to work through the city manager. And if we're displeased with the way she's handled it, or he, then we either terminate the city manager, give them direction, or whatever else. But we don't hire, fire anybody except through the city manager. She handles that. And our recourse, if we see something we don't like, is to put that on her evaluation report.
May I speak,
Mr.
Mr. Mayor?
McElroy.
First of all, as calmly and as firmly as Councilman Cheatham stated his position, I have to concur with Councilman Bly, and I have to disagree also with the mayor. The difference with this last Exhibit 4 says that if we make a motion, attempt to pass an ordinance, or anything that has anything to do with the way the city manager is operating her staff or employees, we will be in violation of a Class 3 misdemeanor and forfeit our office. So when we make a motion to change something, we have just violated, even though we're amongst ourselves. So that is not in the charter. Now, I said, and I don't see why we even need this if we are saying it's already in the charter, and Ms. Fleming should be able to attest. I know better than anyone that all we can do is inquire. Then why do we need this interference? I don't think I've ever instructed the city manager to take any action, because I was taught that that is a collective decision by this body. So why do we need to even have this charter amendment? The only thing it does, as you said, if you bring it up or try to pursue it, you automatically lose your job. So in other words, we have no voice if we don't like the way any departments are operating. It's none of our business. We can make no recommendations to the city manager as to what she should do, because we would be in violation. Is that what it says?
Not at all.
No.
Where does it not say that?
It says right here, except for the purpose of inquiry, the city council and its members shall deal with the administrative services of the city solely through the city manager.
Understood.
Okay.
Understood.
Neither the city council nor any member thereof shall give orders either publicly or privately to any subordinate of the city manager.
Fine.
Okay. Any council member violating the provisions of this section those two things, or voting on a motion, resolution, or ordinance in violation of this section.
Hold it, how could we vote on an ordinance or a motion in violation of that? How could that happen? Please, counsel, explain to me how we can make a motion or an ordinance or a resolution that would be in violation of that, if we are only inquiring.
My thinking would be, and now correct me if I'm wrong, is if someone put forth a motion to fire the person that works in a department, we can't do that.
Has that ever happened in our history?
And I don't know that we would go to the extreme of trying to replace
So
somebody.
if that's never
But I'm trying to
happened,
give you an example.
why would
That's
we
going
amend our
below the-
charter
That's
to
going below
reflect
the
that?
city manager, and that's an example that I can think of.
Fine. So how, if that's never happened in our history, why would we put that in our charter to prevent it? Where, again, we are trying, our charter clearly states the only way a council person can be removed is if they commit or are charged with a felony. That was approved by the General Assembly. We are going on to say that we want more ways to be able to get rid of a council person if we collectively think they should go. If we think they did improper behavior, collectively, we think it's improper behavior, there's your red shirt, blue shirt thing, Mr. Burgess. If the council by 4 vote says, well, it's just like the Virginia law. You don't have to have a reason to terminate somebody. You're an employer, Mr. Burgess. You know that. You don't need a reason in Virginia to fire somebody. So what we're basically doing is we're putting the same type thing in our city council so that if the council changes and 4 of us disagree with the way you're asking questions, that's improper behavior, and we can recommend forfeiture of office.
What exhibit are you looking at that says improper behavior?
The improper behavior is under the amendments to recall, recall provision, the last line
Well,
on page 3.
we're on section 4.
On section 4 being the one that Councilman Bly was talking about?
That's the one we're talking about.
Right, and that's the one that says if we make a motion or a resolution or anything regarding the operation of a subordinate of the city manager, we are in violation of that provision, and we forfeit our office as well as we're being charged with a Class 3 misdemeanor. Now, the lawyer knows, or our attorney can tell us, but I didn't even know that the city can create misdemeanor laws. And if you make a motion, you have just committed a crime. You're creating crimes. And then say if you do it, that's a crime, and we can charge you with it. Isn't a misdemeanor a crime, Mr. Williams?
Yes, it is.
And wouldn't this charter amendment create a crime?
According to the language in this particular draft,
It would.
it does create a Class 3 misdemeanor,
Crime.
which is a crime punishable by a fine of up to $500
And forfeiture.
and calls for the forfeiture
But
of
I
law.
So
think you're
we are creating-
misreading-
That's how this proposal is crafted.
Now, the purpose of that is to say, we won't do that because there is a requirement that there's a penalty for doing that, so we don't do it.
But,
Well, we
Mr.
don't
Mayor,
make a motion, we
No,
don't.
we
Mr. Mayor.
don't conduct ourselves in that fashion because there is a penalty for doing so.
But
And
Mr.
it's a
Mayor.
violation of the charter to start with.
Mr. Mayor, the part about violation and making an ordinance deals with this section. This
Right.
section does not deal with how you dress or
No,
how you
I'm just
act.
saying,
Wait
hold
just a
it.
minute.
You've got the other ones for that.
Just
No,
a
no, no.
moment, just
It
a moment.
only deals with interference and recommendations dealing with personnel, nothing else,
By individual.
by individual. That's all it deals with.
And
Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
That's how I interpret it
Mr. Mayor.
anyway.
Okay, right.
Mr. Mayor, the part that Councilman McLemore is talking about, definition of the term improper behavior, is coming underneath of the recall provision. Excuse me, which is being generated not by council, but by the people in each individual ward. Not by us, by the individuals in each individual ward. So are you saying the citizens in your ward should not have the ability to say, Councilman McMore, I think you're behaving improper, therefore I want to start a recall?
No. And
Well,
I told you,
that's where that
I
comes
support,
out that you keep
so,
referring
so,
to,
so, look, let me put for the record, I support the recall provisions. Have no problem with it because I believe that I don't have to worry about that from my constituents. I am concerned with this council coming up with ways that people automatically forfeit their office.
Nothing gets done automatically. It has
Mr. Mayor, there's one correct, excuse me, I'm sorry.
So if my taxes get behind, I don't automatically forfeit my office.
As long as you pay them on December 31st, like everybody else.
Mr. Mayor, there's one error that he said. This is not council bringing this forward. I told you, I brought this on behalf of constituents. And again, I know you don't believe me, but you will meet the people that are doing it, or else it doesn't pass.
I
Because
don't
I'm not
doubt
gonna
that
vote.
there's people-
But this is not me bringing it forward. This is the constituents saying it. So you're saying council is bringing this forward. We're not. We are discussing something that the constituents put in front of us, just like we're going to do in Section D. When we get down to that, we're going to discuss that.
Well, I'm gonna say one thing, Mr. Mayor.
You may.
All right, you say constituents. All right, it's no constituent in the city of Franklin could sit down and put it on the bylaws of this, especially what I just read, without being coached into how to word it. And I'd like to know, Mr. Williams, did you write this?
No, sir, I did not.
Ms. Fleming, you had no input, right? Okay, so I'd like to know who fed this to the constituent you're referring to write it up. It's too much city
Don,
conversation.
I think at the public hearing, you'll find out who.
Yeah, and I want to know who fed all this data to them to write it up like this.
It's in the charter. It's open
Yeah,
for
yeah, but what,
everybody to look
but
at.
what I'm saying, the way they're doing this, I'm agree, I'm not a McLemore man, but I do agree with him on this.
Okay.
I won't say that, but it's too.
I'm not black.
All right,
Mr. Mayor, I would also like to point out.
But what I'm saying is, to me,
Make it,
it
make
makes
your
it,
point.
all right, my point is, the amendment to the charter that we have here was shut down city council members up here where you do not have any authority to get any answers for your constituents. And number two is, we say we have policy in this town, but we're not enforcing policy. And I think as a council person, when I'm approached by someone outside the city on an issue that policy was broken, and yet I'm told I will never know who the person is or what action was taken, then what is a council person doing here?
Okay.
If you can't answer to the public and hold people responsible in city government, this is no free ride, folks. And
I think we're missing the point because this is not about anything but our interference with the management of the city manager. And I think that's what Exhibit 4 is
Mr.
about.
Mayor, I go back and
You may.
point out one more thing. If you look at page 6 of there were 22, I think there's 39 cities in the state of Virginia.
Yes, sir.
22 of 39 have this language in their charter.
And hold
So
on, wait,
again,
wait,
so
don't
just a
mislead the
moment.
public.
Similar language in this charter, in their charter. So again, it sounds like it's directed at a particular member. Well, how do you explain 22 out of 39 having it in their charter?
I can explain that to you, because this language can be found in charters in every city in the United States of America, because it's charter language, just like an attorney uses certain language. That's why it's found in those cities. But as far as these individual provisions, I challenge you and will succumb and support every one of these if you can find me one city in Hampton Roads that follows all four of these. All four of these. We will be further with these than any city in Hampton, and not just Hampton Roads, in Virginia. I challenge you to give me one city in the state of Virginia that have all four of these provisions as they've been written. And you will not name one. And I further challenge you, if you'd like to prove me wrong, all it takes to prove me wrong is delay voting on this tonight, and you will prove me wrong that it isn't personal.
Well,
First of all, I don't believe we can vote on it tonight. We have to have the public hearing.
No, you can vote to have the public hearing on it tonight. That is to recommend these in the newspaper to the public.
Any further discussion about anything that has not been mentioned?
Well,
Not regurgence of anything that's been
no,
said?
wouldn't it be fair for the citizens that were here tonight with their concerns about, amending the charter? I don't understand why we can't pull them into and do it all at one time. It's because one might have a better viewpoint than the other, but it seems like we're trying to rush this through. They get it for some unknown reason, not true, to get it through. But the thing is, I think we're acting too hasty on this, and I think as overall it's going to come back and do some lightening in the city government.
I have one last statement I'd like to make, Mr. Mayor.
Is there something different?
Yes, yes, it is different. One of the major concerns that has not been mentioned tonight regarding these 4 charter changes is it was mentioned in the last meeting. There are 4 members up here that are up for re-election. And why rush this through? And that's the reason I believe it's being rushed through. And also, I'm the only council member up here who has ran for mayor. And now that I've shown that I support the citizens of this city, all the citizens, there is a threat that I might run for mayor, and they want to make sure that if you run for mayor, you got to give up your council seat. It's never happened in our history before. We've never had an African-American mayor elected in our city, and we have never had an African-American mayor elected in our city. Mr. Harrell was appointed.
And Mr. Dr. A.B. Harris
Was appointed. He was not elected according to the Board of Electors. So what I'm saying is there's a difference with you trying to push this through at this particular time. If you wait, I give you my word before every citizen in this city. I will support your council changes if you will wait till we see who are the people who have to live with this. If 4 of you are gone, why should you rush to put something on this city that we have to live with for history, when you might not even be here?
Okay, thank you.
And we might be.
Mr. Mayor, if I can just,
Yeah.
these are not about what's going to happen in the next 6 months. These are going to be on the books until another future city council decides they want to throw them out. They're going to affect city council members for 50 years if nobody changes them. They're good governance.
So why do we need to rush it?
That's why you have the references for the other charters that have them. This is not about trying to preclude something from happening in an election or anything. It's about what makes good governance. And nobody has really said anything about what is good governance.
We have basically argued, Mr. Burgess, about the timing.
Mr. McLemore.
Why do we need to rush?
Mr. McLemore, you've made your point.
You didn't bang the gavel on him.
I tried, he had the floor. Okay.
Regardless of what is done, I think it needs to be understood that we have an election every 2 years. So I can't understand, there's a potential change in council every 2 years.
Every 2 years.
Yeah.
So we're waiting 6 months before the election to change the charter. Why not wait a year before you change the charter?
And then
Why
it would
wait
be
2
2
years?
years.
Or start it at the beginning of a term?
You made your point. Anything different?
Yeah, I got a question. Say this amendment goes through. Does that reflect back to any council member things that?
Previous conduct?
Previous, yeah.
Conduct? No,
No.
not at all. It is not in effect until it goes into effect.
Until you do it.
Okay.
Listen here.
Please, Ms. Higgins.
I'd like to say we are responsible as individuals, as grown-up adults, for our own actions. And if this charter amendment caused my constituency to recall me, then so be it. If I have not acted in good governance for my constituents, then so be it.
Thank you.
I agree.
Okay. Call for the question. All in favor of that, we have a motion on the floor. All in favor of the motion? Restate the motion, Mr. Burgess. Ms.
Please.
Aaron?
That was 30 minutes.
The motion to approve, one motion to hold a public hearing on November 28th for proposed charter changes.
Have a motion and a second
I
on the
think it
floor.
also had in there to authorize staff to advertise. I don't know if that's necessary. Is that?
Public hearing is after.
That's fine. He said it wasn't necessary.
All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Aye.
And aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Okay. Now, C, surplus property.
We have a report before you.
Ms. Fleming, do you want to make that report?
Because I'm trying to work for poor people.
This is Mr. Williams's ordinance.
Okay.
I will support him.
Mr. Williams?
I'll try to make this very simple. We have two statutes that deal with surplus. What can you do with property that's no longer being used by the city? In Code Section 23.5-31, the city manager is given three options as to what can be done with the property. The property could be transferred to another office from one department to another department. The property could be traded or exchanged for the purchase of new property. That's the second option. The third option is to hold the item for a periodic sale. What is missing is that if it doesn't fit in any of those three categories, the city manager can't do anything with it without bringing it back to council and saying, we've got this junk we need to get rid of, will you allow me to throw it away? And so what is being brought to you for consideration is giving the city manager the authority to say, okay, I've got this pile of junk over here. It costs too much to store it. It costs too much to try to sell it. It has no value. I want to get rid of it. And granting the city manager the authority to do that, which is what is missing, in my opinion, in the complete repertoire of what to do with surplus property. I've highlighted that language that I would like to see you consider for expanding the authority of the city manager to get rid of property that has no value. And it's that simple. I'm asking you to expand her authority.
And it seems like there are two options within that. First is if there has any value that would exceed the cost of disposal or storage, then it could be put at public auction. And if that's not satisfactory.
See, that's already in number 3. That's in that's one of the 3 up above.
Okay, so
That's
it's already
already-
there.
That's already there.
Yes. Now, I changed the language around a little bit, so I highlighted it.
Okay.
But that's a power that's already there. She can sell the property.
So you just added the first sentence that allows for disposal of unsuitable property for resale.
Yes, that's the new language.
Okay.
I have made some adjustments in the other language,
Okay.
but that's the new language.
But the essence is the same.
Right.
You're just adding dispose of property that is of absolute no value, just get rid of it.
The question that I put to you is, why would you give your city manager authority to sell surplus property that has value without bringing that to you, but not give her the authority to get rid of junk?
They have
And
no
she
value.
has to bring that to you. What sense does that make?
So we have given, question, Mr. Mayor, can I ask?
Please.
So we have given the city manager the authority to sell property without coming before us?
That's what's already in the code. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
So
She has those
so-
3 powers.
So please, just a yes or no answer, Willis. So this vote is actually to extend the powers of the city manager, correct?
To the
get rid of
extent that it
trash.
allows her to dispose of
So it will give
unsellable
more authority to the city manager than she currently has, or the future city manager than they currently have, correct?
It's giving
And-
additional authority to the city manager.
Right, additional authority. And the previous topic took more authority from council members, correct?
No, sir.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Bly?
Mr. Williams, you're talking about, worn out equipment and so forth. Yeah, we had a surplus of it that was no good. It was junk, If somebody came up to Ms. Fleming and as city manager and gave her an offer for it, and she thought it was a just offer versus had to pay to have it disposed of, she would legally be allowed to accept that offer, wouldn't she?
No,
Why?
because it's not a sale. It's not available to the public. A sale requires that you give notice and the public come and you hold an auction for sale.
Mr. Mayor?
Just a moment.
Oh,
Are you through?
Yes.
Okay.
okay, you asked my question. Thank you.
That, I have to challenge that, Mr. Williams, the statement that, would you make it again? Say it again so I can make sure.
If it's a sale.
A sale of city
Councilman
property.
Councilman Bly's question was, if we have this junk and someone wants to offer a lowball price to sell it,
I heard
why
his
couldn't
question.
she sell it?
I asked your answer. Could you repeat what you responded to him?
The answer is no, she could not sell it.
And you said the reason why is when they have public,
When you
anything belongs
have
to
a
the public,
sale.
the city, you have to have an auction sale.
That's correct.
Well,
You have to
that
give
is
notice.
not what this council did when we disposed of the land on Clay Street. There was no auction done. The council voted in closed session to sell it to the guy they chose.
Closed session.
Yes, well, they agreed in closed session to sell it to someone without offering it up for sale in an auction. So that is not what happens, with all due respect, with city property. And unless someone would like to challenge that there was no auction for the sale of the property on Clay Street.
I don't know what property you're speaking
The
of.
the property that the citizen came here and said that he wanted to buy.
You mean on Country Club?
The piece of land that was between the man's house and another
That's on Country Club.
Country Club Road. Country Club Road. There was no auction. And it was city property. There was no auction.
Okay, Mr. McElroy.
So that is not the case. They do things
The city
with
manager is
property
not authorized to do that.
without the council's acknowledging to the public. That's
The
for a
council
fact.
authorized that sale, not the city manager.
Without following procedure of
That's not
allowing
true,
the city.
Councilman McLemore. I'm going to take issue with you on that. That's not true.
What is wrong? What's not true?
There is another code section that allows the city to sell land.
That's right.
This is personal property. They're different things. Land and
Oh,
personal property are different
so we don't have to offer,
Let him finish.
I'm asking him as
Let
his
him
explanation.
To sell excess, surplus, unused, worn out, personal property, the city manager can only sell it if she advertises it and holds a public auction. To sell land, there's a different process altogether that can be done by contract. All the land that we sell is done by contract.
Did you offer to the public an opportunity to purchase the land?
Yes, it was.
That's not true, and y'all know it's not true. It was
Mr.
decided in the back that who you were going to give the land to. And that's why you've come up with these charter changes, because I continue to tell the public about what you're doing.
I believe you made a motion to sell it.
And while, since he mentioned, Mr. Mayor, since he made a motion,
You're not going to keep telling you this fact.
it's not my intention, sir. I would like to say that I'd like to inform this council so that they have plenty notice that Councilman Bly and myself would like to call for a special call meeting to discuss the motion that was taken tonight. And since we were in the winning side, we have the opportunity to bring it back. So we would like to inform the council that we are going to call a special call meeting to address to address these charter amendments.
That's off the subject. Let's finish the topic.
It's not on the agenda. There's a process.
It's surplus property we're talking about.
Surplus property.
You've got the proposed language that I would suggest to you takes care of this issue.
May I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion more on anything different? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 And aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now get rid of the junk.
Okay, that is, that gets us to part D.
D.
Part D are other changes to be recommended to the charter. That's been an add-on. There are people here who would like to make suggestions to that effect. Some have been given to council members. There may be those in the audience who have made those recommendations. If they wish to present them, that would be appropriate. Is there anyone here who would like to make a proposal for a charter change?
Well, we have them in hand, so
Not all of them. I've got one that I did hand in.
I only
Well,
have
I mean-
one.
if we could read it and then the author of the proposed change come up and explain it.
And that would be fine.
If they want to. I mean, that
Mr.
doesn't
Mayor?
have to be done.
Is there
Just a
anything
moment.
different from,
Just a moment. I'm
we didn't
trying-
read them at the last time.
I'm just trying to sort this out.
I mean, if you don't want to read them, just hand them over.
I think Vice Mayor, I
What
believe.
I'd recommend in this circumstance, if there is a proposer in the audience who has a proposal to make to council, would you please come up, identify yourself, and make the proposal to us?
Okay, so we're not going to read,
And
okay.
we'll do that. Mr. Johnson?
To Mayor Council, Vice Mayor Johnson, members of the council, Mrs. Fleming, Mr. Williams, we've had a great time this evening. The proposed charter changes for the city of Franklin. Firstly, I'll do them in order. Firstly, the city adopt mayor council for government instead of manager council for government. Mayor council for government is a strong mayor government used by the city of Richmond, Virginia. I would urge you to look that up, check out all of, it was developed by Mayor Douglas Wilder, who was one of our former governors. It's a smooth oil machine. It's working very properly. For instance, it would work very quickly. If mayor council had a mayor council, he would be the mayor, and the vice mayor would be Vice Mayor Johnson, and the council would have power, and the city manager would work on the city government, but the mayor would be in charge versus city manager running the government. And this is no implication. We have a fine city manager, but I'm saying she's leaving. Now we're getting another city manager. If we had mayor council government, this would be a strong government. We talk about strong government. This is one of the things, check out the strength that Richmond is doing. All we have to do is downsize it, and make it, tweak it for Franklin, Virginia. Secondly, time limits, where an individual would do, city council members would do 3 terms for 3 4-year terms. After the 4-year terms, they would have to set out for 4 years, for 1 term, which would be 4 years. For the mayor, 6 consecutive mayor terms of 2-year terms, which would equal 12 years along with the city council. After that, they would have to set out for a term before they could run again for city council. Thirdly, council members should attend, if they miss more than 2 consecutive meetings, they should be not only reprimanded, but that's a way of being put off a council without a proper excuse, because city business is very important. People elect individuals to office. You have to honor those offices and do your very best while you're in the office. Fourthly, in the future, when changing the city charter, the board, which is the city council with the mayor, must obtain a supermajority of 6 wards. A supermajority of 6 wards. We have 6 wards. A supermajority would be, you would have to have a five votes, if at least 5 votes for a supermajority on very important issues for the city. The 3, that would eliminate the three votes to pass something. There would have to be from four city councilman wards, all 6 wards, there would have to be 5 individuals that would vote for this issue. Now that's strong government. That means whatever you take your time and do, you're going to make sure and research that it's done. Those are the 4 proposals basically that we propose, and I've talked to other individuals who, just like Mr. Burgess has had presentations to him. The only thing that I asked of these proposals is that they are considered in the same fashion and manner that they were given to Mr. Burgess and then passed to the city attorney. We would like for those 4 to be considered the same way. There's no way it should be where it's rushed through to get something done. We're working for the future of the city. We're citizens. We love the citizens. Nothing should be forced on the citizens without public awareness, where they can put it to a vote and have their opinion expressed. We love good, strong city government, and we want to keep it that way so that in the future, this city can move forward. All of the recommendations that I have brought before you are being activated now in various city governments throughout not only Virginia, but the United States. To do something else, we don't want to turn back the hands of time where we would cripple ourselves of going forward, because we need jobs and to move this city forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
William Cannon, 112 Page Street, Franklin, Virginia. I gave Mr. Cheatham, my representative, my list. I just want to reiterate what Dr. Johnson said. Everything I was going to say, he just said. I think you're going to find some good recommendations by other citizens that would complement the ones y'all have already made. And I just also want to reemphasize that I think you ought to take your time. I just don't see a rush doing this. I think we ought to take our time and do it right the first time. But I think you're going to find some good recommendations out of the 3 or 4 people who presented these tonight that can complement the ones you are doing. And again, I emphasize to you, based on the discussions that I've heard tonight, that I really believe that we need to keep as much control under city council members as we can. That's what you elected by the citizens to represent them. Thank you.
Mr. Cannon handed out proposed amendments, so do these go in?
Just legality. All it goes to Mr. Williams for legality.
Which I handed him.
Everything that we've given tonight goes to Mr. Williams for legality purposes.
What do you consider a supermajority?
Basically, like Reverend
So the
Johnson.
mayor has no vote in it? Is that what I'm understanding?
He explained that a minute ago. Will you explain that again, Reverend Johnson?
Well, the way it reads, I mean, I read it, and it talks.
I'm going by his definition.
Okay. All right.
Well, Mr. Cheatham, that's where language comes into existence.
Well, I read it, but what I understood
Right.
was no mayor has a vote in this. Is that correct? Just the ward members?
Correct.
Not the guy elected at large?
Correct.
That's what I read. I just want to clarify.
Correct,
that.
correct.
That's all.
It would be between the 6 wards.
Right.
We're not eliminating the mayor, because the mayor, with a strong mayor government, the mayor is in charge.
Is it correct? Can I ask? a
Yes.
question? I was told that a supermajority would be 6 votes out of 7, and that includes the mayor. If you
Yes.
exclude the mayor, it is 5 votes out of 6.
Right.
Because right now, what we have is basically 3-3 tie, and then the mayor breaks it, and it goes the way the mayor breaks it.
That's not the way our charter.
But when we have 3 to go for something, for A, and 3 that goes against it, the mayor very well is the deciding vote that gives you 4.
What if I vote first?
You don't never vote first.
Because we vote in order.
Okay, and you come last. So the mayor,
But I'm not a tie-breaking vote.
it doesn't read in our charter, or Mr. Williams can reflect this right here in our books. It doesn't read that you are titled a tiebreaker.
That's correct.
But the reality is, when we have these 4-3 votes, usually you're on the 4 side, which means there were 3 council people that were for, 3 council people that were against, and you made the deciding 4th vote. In a supermajority, it's left with the council, and if the mayor is involved and a supermajority is called on, then it takes 6 votes to pass it.
Mr. Mayor, I brought up the issue, and the only thing I wanted was clarification. It was the wards and not the at-large vote.
Right.
And he answered that question,
Yes.
and I wanted to make sure that everybody was on the same page.
Would you have to change the charter to take away the mayor's vote?
Right, well, that's, I understand, but I was just saying, I just wanted it clarified what he meant by supermajority.
And supermajority can be defined as anything you wish it to be.
Correct, correct.
It generally is more than the majority by 1, so it's
Yes.
generally 5 out of 7.
Right.
Yes.
That's
That's
the
correct.
norm.
That's correct.
Typically what it is.
Yes.
But,
And, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Mayor, I think it needs to be clear that the mayor in Franklin currently, under the charter that exists now, is not a tiebreaker. He is an equal member of council.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
But aren't these for charter changes?
These are changes to be
Yes.
considered.
Yeah,
These are changes, I just wanted clarification, and I wanted to make sure that I read it correctly, that you had excluded the mayor who was elected at large in this, and that your definition was 5 out of 6, not 5 out of 7.
right.
That's all I want to clarify.
Right,
And
but
these-
but that can be
Yeah,
tweaked.
that can be tweaked, I just
Yes.
wanted to clarify as to what you meant.
And these are only, the supermajority, as I read it, is only as it deals to the city charter. So it doesn't create the mayor being a tiebreaker in all votes.
Right.
No,
It doesn't,
Right.
it doesn't address that at all.
not the same, that's right.
It does.
Was it your intention when you drafted this, so that, what was your intention? Was it, I'm assuming that when we have major decisions, such as charter changes, or the Navy issue, or redistricting, things that will affect us, that there takes more than just 3 people and somebody breaking the tie?
Yes, yes.
That was, okay.
Uh,
Which
su-
to me
super-
makes sense,
Right,
because
supermajority is
that
for
way,
important
Greg
issues.
McLemore can be the one stands out. I can be, but 6 of y'all voting for it, it still passes. So you still leave room for a council person to retain their position, however firm they are on it. But the council, nevertheless, it shows to the public that 6 out of 7 people came to the conclusion and agreement that this is the best move for the city. So it allows you to, I think it's great.
Okay, that's fine. We understand.
Thank you.
But I think we need to understand that Dr. Johnson has put in his proposals, in the future, when changing the charter, the board must obtain a supermajority from the 6 ward members of the council of 5 votes.
Right, that's what
Yeah,
I wanted
yeah.
to clarify too, that
Yeah,
that's what he
because,
meant.
but if it would have been considered the way that and y'all voted down, that would have been taken into consideration as one of the charter amendments that would have been brought before the public at this public hearing before we send it to this General Assembly. But as you've left it, the general public will never have an opportunity, or will this council amend those charter amendments that were advertised? Because right now, you're not going to advertise the super majority so that citizens can speak on it. You're only going to advertise those 4.
But when we consider them, they'll be advertised.
It'll have to be a different,
correct.
a General Assembly session before you can do anything except these
But
4
wait,
things.
This is going to public hearing, as soon
On the
as he
28th.
validates the legal, correct?
No, it comes back to us for consideration to go to public hearing, just like we did on this.
He's right.
Once he looks at all of these, he'll come back. with
He'll come back
recommendations.
and tell us if they're legal.
Yeah, and then
and
we'll,
then we'll have to
then
start
we'll
the
decide
process
whether,
all over.
then we'll decide to go to public hearing.
So
Okay.
by then,
Okay,
it's too late.
all right, there's another, Ms. Hilliard has one as well. Is there anyone else in the audience?
Mr. McCartney,
He left. Mr. Drury?
Mr. Drury did, I think, yeah.
This is the
Just a moment.
mayor, council. I just wanted to say that I'm for the strong mayor as well. I mean, there's no question. Our council is a whole lot stronger than one person to lead a city, and I think it would really be a good idea to hold off, take your time and think about it before we make a decision, because I mean, asking one person to do, there are things that I see around here, and being that I was in business, that I don't understand the city doing. I mean, I don't understand how a man who is only one man in a vehicle is driving around in a Jeep Cherokee Jeep just to look around the city to see who's cut the grass. That thing probably gets 19 miles to a gallon. He could do it in a car. He could do it on a motorcycle. But there's things that need to be taken in consideration. You know, I just don't think that one person, one manager can do the job. I think it takes a council to do a job, and the super mayor seems to be the best way to do that, a strong mayor. Thank you very much.
Ms. Hilliard?
This was, Rick Sykes had approached me with that, and I don't even know how to begin. Anyway, I can read it. Elected office terms limit. No one should hold the office of mayor for more than 5 consecutive 2-year terms, equaling a total of 10 years without leaving office for at least the 2 following terms are 4 years. After sitting out the 4 years that follow a 10-year service, the person can re-qualify to be put on the ballot to run for mayor for 5 more terms. And I haven't deciphered this tonight. As I said, it was given to me at 5 o'clock. During the 2 terms that follow, 5 consecutive terms, the former mayor is required to vacate all committee and all board positions that may hold for 4 years following their removal from office. During that time, the former mayor is not to have any involvement or participation with that board or committee whatsoever. Failure to abide by these stipulations will disqualify the party from being eligible to serve a second 10-year term limit. No elected council person will be allowed to serve more than 4 consecutive terms equaling a total of 12 years without resigning and sitting out at least 1 4-year term before seeking re-election to continue to serve on council. At the end of a 12-year service, the exiting council person is required to vacate all committee and our board positions they may hold for 4 years following their expiration from office. During that time, the former council person is not to have any involvement or participation with that board or committee whatsoever. Failure to abide by these stipulations will disqualify the party from being eligible to serve a second 12-year term limit. Any council person, including the mayor, are not allowed to serve more than 1 4-year term or a full total of 4 years on any board or committee before resigning that appointment, allowing a rotation of council persons unless there is no other council person willing to serve on that board or committee. Any council person that has exceeded these term limits will immediately render a 2-week notice and step down from that board or committee. And it is something on here about school board officers. School board members to be elected to serve and no longer appointed by council. Yeah, that's another thing. Anyway, school board members' terms would be 2-year terms running along with the mayor and council elections. School board members must reside in the ward they wish to represent. School board members will be subject to the same recall and forfeiture provisions that apply to city council members. And this is from the Citizens of Ward 5 to Councilwoman Mary Hilliard.
Mr. McClenny's are directed.
He's already passed those out. I assume that was, I don't think they need to be read. I think they need to be forwarded. I support forwarding them to the attorney.
Because it's some overlapping. It's some overlapping and a whole different subject.
Do you need a motion? We did one at the last meeting.
Yeah, let's do that.
I move that the proposed charter changes 4 sets, is it 4? 5 sets of charter changes be forwarded to the city attorney for review, be brought back to council.
Second.
All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
And aye. Motion carried. Good. Thank you. All right, that concludes our agenda items. May I have a motion to go into closed session?
I move that the Franklin City Council.
We have boards and commissions.
I'm sorry, board reports. I'm sorry, I forgot that. Apologize. Item E is reports on boards.
The incubator board met this past Thursday. Just a quick rundown. We are developing some alliances with area incubators, and we're getting, when somebody comes to them and they don't get a chance to, they don't qualify for their incubator, they don't have the space, they will refer to us and we refer back to them if we have something doesn't fit our incubator. We have already gotten one referral from the Hampton Incubator. As we recognized at our previous meeting, we had the incubator tenant won the Resilience Award from UVA. We need 3 more full-time jobs to meet our goal that we needed for our grant. I think we're at 41 and we needed 44. So we've already gotten that part of it. There's another section about low to moderate income. We still have some more of those jobs that we need to fill. But we're working on that. So that means that really our jobs are on the higher pay scale, high-end pay scale, which is really what's good for the area. We have 7 offices on our 4th floor, which we just finished building out, that are already filled. We do have some on the lower floors that have not been filled at this point. We're looking at some policy issues that we have to work on. For instance, what is the definition of graduation? Not that it makes any difference in anything that we're doing, other than just so we are consistent when we say they graduated. For instance, if somebody leaves the incubator and goes back home, did they graduate? Did they go to their home? Did they graduate? We're just trying to, kind of give some baseline of what we mean by graduation. So we'll be working on that and bringing that out. Probably bring that to us for approval. And we also have some collection policies that we're going to be discussing and bringing to the city, I think, which has to come to us because that's city revenue. So you'll be hearing about that in the future. All in all, I think that we're headed in the right direction. Sounds good.
I have a quick report on the conference that I attended with Education Workforce. I gave you my notes for your perusal. It was a very good conference, and industry and the governments at all levels are very, very concerned about the educational product that's being generated and for its ability to meet the needs of the future. One of the statements that I heard that I've made in my notes was, if you want to predict what your future is going to look like as a city, look at what your workforce looks like today. And based on the quality of your workforce today, you can predict what your future, your city's going to look like. Therefore, if you want to change, you have to change your workforce, which means you have to change the product that's going into the workforce, and that starts at birth to career, not K-12. So there's a lot of stuff in there. There's a lot of good stuff that we could do. I hope you'll enjoy reading that. It was just a great conference. I'll also give you an update on the floodgates. We've gotten an update for Vince and Ms. Fleming and Russ on the floodgate issue. They've gotten some new current numbers, which are basically the same as the other, but some additional infrastructure work that the engineers are proposing. That's gone to Ms. Fleming and to Russ, and they will be looking at that to decide what the next steps will be. But we have gotten some updates. It seems like the gates themselves will not be such a tremendous burden, but there's some other things that would be influenced by flooding that, as far as infrastructure needs to be done, and I won't try to go into all of that. I hope that Ms. Fleming and Russ can come back to us at a later date with kind of an update as to where we are on that. But it is moving forward. Mr. Vince Holt is looking for a grant to purchase the floodgates through flood mitigation, and thinks he may well be able to do that and maybe get some money for some other things as well. And that's the end of my report. Anybody else?
Mr. Mayor, I've got a couple of things. One is we had a jail meeting. There was no quorum. It was on Wednesday after Election Day. And but they did hand out the audit for the jail, and it came out with a clean opinion. In fact, there's a little surplus in there this time, which is unusual for the jail. Also, I'd like to announce that on Wednesday at 9:30 at Southampton County Administrative Building, it's the first meeting I'm not going to be able to make, but it's on the IROD, and this will be the last one. I was on the telephone with the folks doing this study and the recommendations that they're going to be making, and they're going to be making some very strong recommendations at this meeting. So I would ask anybody from City Council that can be there at 9:30. They'll also have a little breakfast type item there too, I think, for folks, and coffee. But they're going to be going over this, and any of you can make it, I'd appreciate it. But one of the recommendations they're going to be talking about is the possibility of Franklin getting grants and running their own transfer service and hiring a person, a contractor possibly to do it, that to help get the grants and would operate it. That's about all I can tell you. They threw out some numbers, but they are very, very iffy. But it's something that we may want to look at.
Would it be just for the city of Franklin? I mean,
This
other
would
people
be-
could ride, but it would be from the city.
This would be running the circuit that it's running now. They talked about possibly Southampton coming in with us, only in the Cortland area. But that's all the stuff that's going to be talked about, and that's going to be on the recommendation. What I was focused on was the city of Franklin and what routes are they going to be running now. And it's basically the loop now, except on a more timely basis. In other words, coming by each spot one time an hour instead of the way it is now. And they had some ideas for tweaking that and making that more efficient for us. But it's all in the works, and the recommendations are coming out after a several-month study, as some of you may know. At the current time, Senior Citizens runs it. So if you
Do
can
they
make
wanna
it, I
give
would.
that up?
Well, they're not,
Contract it out?
it's not efficient for them to do that, what they're trying to do. And some of you may or may not know, the buses that Senior Services run, any of us can ride them, even if we're not senior citizens. But the way it's set up is that if the bus is full and a senior citizen wants to get on, then somebody that is not a senior citizen is supposed to be getting off to give them space on the bus. So this would be making it more across the board, running at longer hours to help maybe get people to work and that type of thing, say over to the hospital, wherever they may work, or to the doctors over at the hospital. So just some things that they're now working on. I'll have a more written report from them, because I've requested that. And that's all I was involved with.
Okay, very good. Any other reports? If not, may I have a motion to go into closed session?
I move that the Franklin City Council meet in closed session to consider appointments to boards and commissions, discussion of candidates for employment as city manager, and consultation with legal counsel pertaining to actual or probable litigation, where such consultation in open meeting would adversely affect the negotiating and litigating posture of the public body as permitted by Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A1 and 7.
Excuse me, does that include the appointments? Is that in there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Boards
Okay,
and commissions.
I apologize, thank you. Motion is a second, and all in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
And aye, motion carries. Thank you all.
I got it.